Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome to Real Classic Film Reviews and welcome to the third part of my Criterion Collection overview. This is the final shelf. As you can see, it's not quite a full shelf. We've got some HMV premium collections just kind of filling out the shelf at that end, but I thought for the sake of completion I will do the final shelf and we'll just get cracking straight into it. So we've got Showboat from 1936. This is a musical based on Edna Ferber's novel. This film's directed by James Whale, who you would know from the original Frankenstein and the original Visible Man movies. Did a lot of monster movies, and the star, or the subject I should say, of the late 90s film Gods and Monsters, where he was played by Sir Ian McKellen. So this is the 1936 version. There's actually, this is a remake because there was a 1929 version and also a subsequent version made in the 50s, the very early 50s of Showboat. So great little musical that. Next up we've got Prince of Tides from the early 90s. This was filmed by Barbra Streisand, excuse me. Obviously, Streisand was, a filmmaker in her own right. She directed Yentl and, crikey, The Mirror Has Two Faces, as well as a bunch of her own kind of concert movies. She made those. Great Nick Nolte performance in this. I think this gets a little bit of, there's a bit of controversy around this being on the Criterion label because of it's maybe just a bit of a throwaway kind of drama thriller. And I think there was some kind of some issue with some of the comments that were made in one of the audio commentaries on the old Laserdisc. I think someone can correct me about that in the comments below, but I'm sure I've read that somewhere. All right, let's have a look. Next up is Destry Rides Again, which I hadn't seen until I picked it up on the Criterion Collection. James Stewart in, I think, his first Western, and Dietrich on a bit of a comeback, really. Dietrich's obviously fantastic, and she's, she could never go too far into any film without being kind of, without banging out a tune. Here she plays the saloon showgirl, and Stewart plays the kind of, the new kind of sheriff, but, one who's kind of doesn't like confrontation or guns. But really great film, directed by George Marshall, who actually made like a million Westerns throughout the 30s, 40s and 50s. But that's one of the great Westerns, that Destry Rides Again. Next up we've got Terrence Malick's Tree of Life, which obviously it's a Terrence Malick film. You kind of know what you're getting to an extent. This is the last, I think, of the Malick films that was for me. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I think after this he just lost me like completely, to the point where I don't think I've even seen the last few of his films. But great performance by Brad Pitt in this and Jessica Chastain, and it just looks phenomenal. But it's definitely not for everybody. That's the Tree of Life. Next up, we've got Spy Number 952. Yes, we have. These are obviously out of order. And that is Orson Welles' The Magnificent Ambersons from 1942, famously completely butchered by the studio, who took it off him and just reduced the edit down to whatever it is here, 88 minutes. And it, I suppose, not having obviously seen the full version of it, but it definitely has suffered because of it, because the film's all right. It's not the greatest film in the world, and I know I'll probably get some flack for that, and I know it gets held up aloft, and I do believe that if that footage had been left in, it could have been something, but as such, it's just all right. It's not the greatest film. You can tell that it's been chopped to bits, which is a real shame. Great work by Joseph Cotten in this, but yeah, The Magnificent Ambersons by Orson Welles, one of those unlucky filmmakers. Next up is Alfonso Cuarón's masterwork, probably Roma. Only seen this once, watched it when it was actually on Netflix. I've yet to watch this disc, to be quite honest. But is, Cuarón's kind of sprawling 70s Mexican family drama epic. It's fantastic. And then, speaking of fantastic, we've got Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel, which for me probably sits just behind The Royal Tenenbaums as being his best work. The cover art on that's absolutely astonishing. Ralph Fiennes is absolutely hilarious in this. Absolutely love him. The entire cast is. It looks amazing. Again, it's a Wes Anderson movie, so if you are not, if you have not bought into that aesthetic, or you know, you don't really like his style, you're not going to like this. But if you are a fan, then, you know, this is for you, without a shadow of a doubt. Next up is Spine 1028, sorry, Dance Girl Dance. Filmed by Dorothy Asner, who was actually one of the, if not the only, kind of feature-length filmmaker of the 30s who was a female, or the 40s even, or 30s and early 40s as it says on here. You know, the film itself, you know, it's kind of, you know, chorus girls kind of going up against each other. Great cover there, but definitely worth watching just for that kind of bit of trivia. Next up is a Cassavetes film that I'm not actually a massive fan of. So this is Husbands from 1970, yeah. Written and directed by John Cassavetes. It's all right. Oh, it's not for me massively. I know a lot of people kind of have bad things to say about it because of its depiction of kind of American manhood and things like that, and its themes of domestic abuse. But outside of that, it's just not really my thing. Next up, we've got Spy number 1030, which is Scorsese's shorts, featuring, you know, his shorts basically. There's not a great deal of content around on the disc because they are short films. You know, The Big Shave, American Boy, What's a Nice Girl, Like You Do in a Place Like This. They're all, you know, they're on for about a maximum of 10-15 minutes, but as a package, this thing is absolutely kind of, you know, indispensable. The booklet in this, as I remember reading through this, and the booklet is, you know, comprehensive to say the least. There's all sorts of stuff in there, storyboards, interviews, and there's even, I don't think I've seen them all, but there's some fantastic interviews on the disc itself, on the special features. Yeah, definitely worth checking out just for that. Obviously the shorts themselves don't make up a massive amount of time, but the extra features on there are what you're really going to get that for. It's outstanding. And speaking of which, we've got Buster Keaton in The Cameraman, Keaton's kind of last great film, before he kind of got sucked into the studio system, if you like. And was this his first MGM movie? Yeah. So you know, it's Keaton, so it's great, and this kind of comes on the run that he had during the 20s and kind of finished it off because it was 1928. But fantastic work from Keaton again. There's an amazing booklet in this that's worth the price of admission alone. It's just fantastic content right the way through, brilliant artwork, and if you're a fan of Keaton, then you'll definitely be a fan of that. Next up, we've got Marriage Story, which is Spy number 1038, and don't let that kind of front cover trick you because it's a pretty harrowing watch for the most part anyway. Certainly a kind of no holds barred look at kind of marriage and divorce and just the kind of trials and tribulations that they go through. Excellent work by Driver and Scarlett, and the entire cast, really, to be quite honest with you. You know, Laura Dern, Alan Alda, excellent. It's a long film though, 137 minutes, but definitely, you know, I don't know how many times you would rewatch that, but you know, it's great. Beau Travail, which I have to be very, very honest, I thought I'd seen this film, but I haven't. And I thought I hadn't seen any of Claire Denis' films, but she did make a film called High Life a few years ago with Robert Pattinson that I remember being an extraordinarily tough watch. And I kind of got this mixed up with something else, so I really need to kind of get myself in gear and watch this, because I hear great things about it. This was from 1999, Spy number 1042. Yeah, definitely looking forward to checking that out. Next up, Claudia Wells' Girlfriends, which I remember reading that it said it kind of inspired an entire generation of people, of filmmakers, to make films and TV shows about kind of ladies kind of making it in New York City, whether that's the kind of, you know, the Sex and the City crew or whatever, which I suppose it did do, really. But I mean, it's a great film, absolutely great film. I'm not sure what else Claudia Wells did. I'm not sure, butchered her name terribly, I do apologise. But essentially the story of her is, you know, she's a kind of aspiring artist, trying to make it in New York. Yeah, Girlfriends, go check that out. So next up, we've got The Irishman, another kind of Netflix Criterion collaboration. Scorsese's, you know, kind of long gestating epic. Time will tell. I mean, I really enjoyed this. I watched it in a couple of sittings when it was on Netflix, and then I watched probably watched it, you know, half of it again when I got this disc, this set, and then kind of went through some of the special features. I won't crack this thing open now, but the release itself is absolutely fantastic. Time will tell if the film is kind of up there in the pantheon of Scorsese epics. I know that I'm concerned about how well the de-aging CGI will look, and I know there's a couple of memes going round about how dodgy De Niro's looks going about his violent business whilst, you know, his kind of 40-year-old face has been plastered onto a 70-year-old guy. I don't know, but as a story, excellent. You know, Pacino, De Niro, Pesci, and obviously Stephen Graham in this as well is fantastic, but we shall see. But definitely worth checking out. And continuing the Scorsese run, we've got Rolling Thunder Review, Scorsese's excellent Bob Dylan kind of documentary. This is again a fantastic set, but so many special features on there. I mean, obviously you have to be a Dylan fan to fully appreciate it. I am to a certain extent. I'm not a Dylan expert by any stretch, but I do appreciate the music, and I appreciate a lot of the techniques that Scorsese uses in this. So if you've yet to see that, it's certainly worth checking out. We're going to follow it with a couple more releases. This one's a new one, and I have not seen this one yet. This is Spine number 1076, and this is Merrily We Go to Hell, again directed by Dorothy Asner, who was the director of Dance Girl Dance, and she made this about a decade previous to that. And I've yet to see it. Addiction, monogamy, and female sexual liberation, decades before such ideas were widely discussed. So yeah, probably another trailblazing film. Definitely looking forward to watching that, and I'm certainly looking forward to rewatching Deep Cover, directed by Bill Duke, obviously starring Lawrence Fishburne there, and a brilliant Jeff Goldblum. I remember watching this on late night TV back in the day. Early 90s film, kind of modern noir drug kind of kingpin movie. Similar vibes possibly to King of New York with what's his body in it? Oh God, I can't remember his name. Why can't I remember his name? You know what I mean. You know who I mean. God, that'll drive me crazy, that, not being able to remember his name. Christopher Walken, of course. Right, that's the end of the Criterion shelf. I'll quickly go through the premium collection releases that just fill out the shelf. You know, if you're not interested, then that's just totally fine. So we've got Battle of the Bulge there, which is one of my favourite war films. Henry Fonda and Robert Shaw, can't go wrong. Dark Passage, starring Bogart and Bacall. You know, it's a classic bit of kind of noir. Really, really trailblazing for the time of having like almost the entire first half of the film being shot in first person. If you've seen it, you know what I mean. Bogart again in Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which is it's one of the greatest films ever made. We've got Suspicion with Grant and Fontaine. Not my favourite Hitchcock. The ending for me doesn't quite satisfy. That's probably controversial again. Night Moves, brilliant kind of new age noir with Gene Hackman, a great Gene Hackman in that. On Dangerous Ground, Ida Lupino and Robert Ryan, excellent. 7 Days in May with one of the greatest cast ever, Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas, Ava Gardner, and that is an excellent kind of suspense movie directed by John Frankenheimer. And then finally on the shelf we've got the original Scarface from Howard Hawks, produced by Howard Hughes, starring Paul Muni and George Raft and Boris Karloff, of course. And that concludes this shelf, which I've made a complete mess of there. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you very, very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.